Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a really fantastic stack of sources a listener sent over, and they focus on one pivotal figure in, well, 20th century history, whose role has been, I think it's fair to say, seriously overlooked. Imam Muhammad Mahdi Abu al-ʿAzāījim. And we're not talking about a footnote here. We're looking at someone the sources frame as a foundational architect of the 1919 revolution in Egypt.
That's exactly right. The main analysis we're using from Dr. Abd al-Halim al-Azmi, it just completely challenges the standard story. It shifts the Imam from just, a respected scholar of science and Sufism to, and this is a direct quote, a fundamental player in the events. So for you listening, this means we have to stop seeing the 1919 revolution through just one political lens. We need to look at its spiritual and intellectual engine.
Right, and that's our mission today, to really uncover how that influence worked. Because what we're reading here isn't just a supporter or a contributor. The analysis calls him the actual driving force, a center of energy for the whole revolution. And it sets the stage right away, describing the Imam as one of the people with great souls, that rare kind of person who's willing to endure, immense personal pain to achieve these huge world-changing goals.
And that framing is so important. It tells you the source of his political power wasn't just strategy, it was this deeply held moral, spiritual conviction. And we have to follow that idea, get past the image of the quiet academic and understand the activist.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with just how big that transformation was. I mean, how does a man revered for his scientific and religious writing make the leap from the study to direct life-threatening resistance against the British occupation?
It's the central tension, isn't it? And it wasn't a slow burn. It was immediate, and the stakes were incredibly high. The source points out he had something that was, well, pretty unique among the leadership. He had his own personal infrastructure, specifically his printing presses.
And these weren't for propaganda to begin with. They were for scholarly work.
Precisely. They were set up to print his really extensive works on Sufi practice, different scientific papers. But as the occupation got more intense and the need for real resistance grew, the Imam made a radical choice. He converted this entire academic and spiritual printing operation into what the source literally calls a weapon for the movement.
Wow. Not just a pivot then. A complete dedication of his resources.
It was, and the material they were printing, it wasn't subtle commentary. We're talking about secret leaflets designed to incite resistance.
Okay, but what makes this so incredibly dangerous is who he was working with.
That's the critical piece. The presses were producing this material on behalf of a secret organization, the Black Hand Society, Usay Anshasiya. And when you hear that name, you have to understand, the Black Hand wasn't just a political club. It was an organization that used direct action, sometimes violent action, against the British.
So he's not just advising them. He's given them the one thing they need to spread their message, the logistical backbone, which means he was directly complicit. If they got caught, he was caught.
Absolutely. Just think about the risk there. If the British found a stack of those leaflets, they wouldn't just confiscate the press, they'd execute the printer. So by offering his infrastructure to the Black Hand, he put himself, his family, his entire spiritual mission on the line. It completely changes the image of this serene scholar. He becomes a high-level logistical operator.
That is just a staggering level of commitment. And this wasn't just a theoretical risk, was it? The British figured it out pretty quickly.
They did. This work led directly to his arrest. Not just once, but multiple times. And crucially, they also arrested his eldest son, Sayyid Ahmad Mahdi Abu al-ʿAzāījim. So this wasn't just taking out one person. It was a raid on the core of the operation.
And the source mentions his son was like his shadow, right?
Yeah.
Totally dedicated to his father's work and later became his successor. It suggests this blending of the spiritual, the Sufi succession with a national duty. It became a family project.
What's fascinating here is that perfect blend. The deep spiritual message with the very practical, very dangerous resistance. For the Imam, caring for the soul of the nation and fighting the occupier they were the same thing, inseparable. His whole philosophy, that idea of enduring hardship for a higher good, it provided the moral justification for using his presses, even with the risk of violence. The political fight was an extension of his spiritual calling.
So if the printing press shows us the risk he was willing to take, the next part really shows us his vision, how he challenged the more moderate political leaders of the time. He moves from the secret role to a very public one.
Yes, and his public stance was defined by what the source calls absolute strictness. This rigidity, it became his trademark. He just believed that compromise was morally impossible.
And what did that mean, practically, in the context of 1919, with all its negotiations and delegations?
It meant no room for maneuver with the British. No gray area at all. His demand, which he published openly in his own papers, was simple. The only conversation to be had with the occupier was about one thing: their departure. Anything else was betraying the nation.
And he wasn't shy about using his own media to, well, to call out the official leaders of the movement, especially Saad Zaghlul, who was the public face of the revolution.
Exactly. I mean, Zaghlul was trying to manage the political realities, trying to negotiate. The Imam's role was to be the national conscience, constantly publishing these warnings to make sure the leaders didn't stray from that core principle of total independence. And this is where the source gives us its most, I think, brilliant metaphor.
The idea of Zaghlul as the front and the Imam as the engine.
Precisely. Saad Zaghlul was the visible front, the Sas, the huge public figure everyone rallied around, the symbol the world saw. But Imam Abu al-ʿAzāījim, according to this analysis, he was the hidden engine, the motor.
That's a huge distinction. Zaghlul drew the crowds, but the Imam provided the moral fuel, that unwavering power that kept the movement on track.
He was the one drawing the red lines. He was the fundamental conscience of the revolution. When people got tired or when compromise looked tempting, it was the Imam's rigid philosophy that reminded everyone of the mandate: nothing less than full independence. The movement needed that to survive.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the British knew this. They understood you could arrest the visible leaders, but if you didn't shut down the engine, the whole thing would just keep going. And that leads to this incredible drama inside a maximum security prison.
Right. When the revolution really kicked off, the British went after the most dangerous organizers first. So the Imam was rounded up and jailed almost immediately. And their goal was simple: isolate him, cut him off from his followers, his presses, and just extinguish his influence.
But the source makes it pretty clear this was maybe the single biggest strategic blunder they made.
Oh, it was a catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
Instantly, instead of isolating him, they handed him a dense, captive audience. The source describes how quickly he just transformed the prison. It became a new platform for preaching and mobilization. His influence didn't just spread, it took over the entire facility.
Who was he recruiting in there?
Everyone. His message resonated with the entire prison community, so not just the other political inmates, but common prisoners, the Egyptian guards, and even the officers in charge of security. They all became his followers. The source uses the word edge. He converted their own system of control into his personal hub of resistance.
The news must have created an absolute crisis for the occupation authorities.
It did. A major security breach. And that's why Ras Pasha, he's the governor of Cairo, basically their head of internal security, decided he had to go see it for himself. For a guy at his level to visit a prison, you know there's serious panic.
So let's picture that scene. Ras Pasha, the symbol of occupation power, walks into this prison to see if the rumors are true. What does he find?
He gets there just as the dur, the noon prayer, is starting. And as he walks into the main courtyard, the source paints this incredible picture. The whole courtyard is packed. Every single man, inmates, uniformed guards, officers, all standing shoulder to shoulder in perfect disciplined rows. And they are all praying behind one man.
The Imam.
The Imam. The power dynamic is completely inverted. The lines between jailer and jailed have been totally erased, replaced by this unified spiritual and political army built right inside a British-controlled fortress. It's just an organizational masterpiece.
That sight alone must have been terrifying for him. But there's a climax to the scene, isn't there?
It's the sound. As the prayer ends, the Imam raises his voice and makes this loud, deep supplication echo. He asks God to free Egypt from the accursed colonialism. And then comes the moment of terror for Ras Pasha. Every single person in that courtyard, from prisoner to officer, roars Amen in a single unified voice that the source says literally shook the prison walls.
He wasn't just witnessing defiance. He was witnessing a disciplined army loyal to their prisoner.
That's the key insight. He realized the Imam wasn't just preaching. He was demonstrating absolute organizational command right under their noses. He had turned their punishment system into a recruitment factory. The source says Ras Pasha was truly terrified. His own system had been turned against him.
The strategic implication must have hit him immediately. Every extra day the Imam is in there, he's just training their own security forces to follow him.
The decision was instant. Ras Pasha ordered the immediate release of the Imam and his son. The occupation realized that keeping him locked up was infinitely more dangerous than letting him go.
But even after his release, his life was still a confrontation, which just tells you how deeply they feared him.
It did. Once he was back in Cairo, the British and the collaborationist government put his home under intense surveillance. They were constantly looking for a reason to lock him up again.
And this wasn't subtle surveillance,
No,
right?
no, not at all. The evidence of their fear is you can feel it. During big religious festivals like Maulid Nabawi, which would naturally draw huge crowds to his home, British forces would conduct full-scale raids. Just picture it. Uniformed soldiers storming the home of a revered spiritual leader during a holiday, searching for weapons, or, more likely, those printing presses.
That speaks volumes. They knew his spiritual authority and political threat were the same thing.
And yet, despite all that, his influence just kept growing. It went global. His home became known across the region as the Kaaba of Delegates.
The Kaaba of Delegates. That's a phenomenal phrase. What does that tell us?
It means his home was the essential, non-official stop for ambassadors, politicians, delegations from all over the Islamic world when they visited Egypt. They came to see him, not just the official government ministers.
So he was wielding serious regional power, conducting a kind of parallel diplomacy that completely bypassed the official channels. It's like foreign leaders trusted his absolute stance more than they trusted the official government's compromises.
Precisely. He was acting like a shadow statesman, using his spiritual credibility to push this uncompromising message of independence. He connected the Egyptian struggle to a much broader movement.
And through all of this, post-prison, what was still his most important weapon?
The media. Always the media. He never gave up the press. He continued publishing his magazines, Al-Fatih and later Al-Madina Al-Munawwara, which kept going even after his death. He understood that the real fight wasn't just physical, it was a battle of consciousness. Oh, Ufiana. He knew the written word could achieve a lasting victory that bullets never could. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source really forces us to see Imam Abu al-ʿAzāījim as this incredibly complex figure. He's a Sufi leader, a writer, an activist, a strategist, all of it synthesized into one charismatic revolutionary.
And the source of that power, the thread that runs through everything from the printing press to the prison yard, is that perfect mix of spiritual depth and political rigidity. That absolute refusal to compromise gave him a moral authority that even the British Empire couldn't break.
Right. And this model of leadership, where the real engine is hidden, setting the moral direction while the front man handles the politics, it forces you to reconsider the whole hierarchy of the 1919 revolution. The most effective leader isn't always the one on stage.
Indeed. This analysis reveals a figure of just incredible organizational genius. It really makes you wonder, considering what he did inside that prison, how he built an army within their own walls, how might the 1919 revolution have been different if the British had never arrested him in the first place? What if they'd never given him the chance to prove his authority inside their own maximum security system? It's a powerful thought. His imprisonment might have actually been the key to his victory.
A truly provocative thought. Thank you for diving deep with us today.